Many veteran viewers, myself included, have long felt that the narrative surrounding Nina discovering Nell was her biological daughter lost a tremendous amount of its dramatic value because Nell was already presumed dead by the time the truth finally came to light. In the grand tradition of any legacy character, the true meat of a secret child storyline lies in the messy, complicated aftermath of the discovery. We desperately wanted to see Nina grapple with the monster her daughter had become, to try and save her from her own darkness, or to ultimately be destroyed by her. Instead, we were handed a ghost story that felt hollow. With Willow now standing as Nina's only living child, the dark and twisted saga of the half-heart necklace seemed permanently closed and filed away. However, this show is legendary for its willingness to completely dismantle and rewrite the history of its characters if it opens the door to a more compelling, explosive narrative. This brings me to a fascinating theory that has been percolating among us longtime watchers, a theory that would completely upend the canvas and restore a sense of classic soap opera intrigue to the forefront. What if the writers are preparing to reveal that Nell Benson was never Nina's biological daughter in the first place? According to this brilliant hypothesis, the twins that Nina gave birth to during her decades-long medically induced coma were actually Willow and a young man who has recently appeared on our screens, the ambitious music producer, Simon. In this scenario, the two infants were ruthlessly separated immediately after birth by the cold and calculating Madeline Reeves. Nell, rather than being the tragic discarded daughter we were led to believe she was merely a collateral player who accidentally or intentionally became entangled in a secret that was never rightfully hers. To truly understand the immense weight of this potential retcon, we have to look back at the ultimate piece of evidence that started this entire saga: the silver, heart-shaped pendant. For years, that necklace was the holy grail of Nina's existence, the singular, tangible tether to the child she was robbed of raising. When the necklace was found with Nell, the entire town, along with the audience, drew the immediate and seemingly logical conclusion that Nell was the missing heir. But what if that piece of jewelry originally belonged to Simon? Imagine a rich backstory where young Simon and Nell crossed paths in their tumultuous, unpredictable youths within the foster care system. They could have been childhood friends, or perhaps they merely inhabited the same grim survival circles. In a moment of envy or sheer opportunistic theft, Nell could have taken the necklace from Simon. When the pendant eventually surfaced in Port Charles around Nell's neck, it created a false trail of breadcrumbs, leading everyone to a tragically incorrect conclusion. If the writers choose to rewrite history in this manner, it would actually be a remarkably logical and deeply satisfying pivot for the audience. The error in identifying Nell would not stem from some convoluted, easily disproven modern DNA test tampering, but rather from the very human, circumstantial error of trusting a stolen piece of jewelry. It miraculously maintains the character integrity of everyone involved at the time because they acted honestly on the best, albeit flawed, evidence available to them. This kind of narrative sleight of hand is exactly what made the golden era of soap operas so incredibly addictive and talked about. It honors the established past while completely blowing the doors off the future, allowing the writers to resurrect the gripping mystery of Nina's lost child without having to literally resurrect a dead character. The dramatic potential for how Simon and Nina could cross paths and unravel this mystery is absolutely delicious to ponder. We know Simon is currently establishing his career in the competitive music industry, having just shown significant interest in Giovanni Palmieri's promising musical talents. Meanwhile, Nina is continually expanding her formidable media and journalistic empire through Crimson and her various high-profile corporate endeavors. It is entirely plausible, and frankly expected, that their professional worlds would soon collide. I can vividly picture a scenario where Nina and Simon are brought together to collaborate on an exclusive promotional campaign or a high-profile interview project for the magazine. The underlying tension would be palpable, built entirely on the classic dramatic irony, where the audience suspects the monumental truth long before the characters do. Picture this masterful scene playing out in a sleek, sunlit Port Charles boardroom. During a tense or perhaps celebratory moment of signing their new collaborative contract, a sudden movement causes the silver, half-heart pendant to slip from beneath Simon's shirt, or perhaps it falls entirely from his grasp onto the polished mahogany table. Nina, a woman who has been haunted by the shape and weight of that specific jewelry for her entire adult life, would instantly freeze. Her breath would catch in her throat as she recognizes the unmistakable, custom design of the heirloom she thought was buried with Nell. Simon, noticing her profound shock and sudden inability to speak, would casually explain that the necklace is a precious relic from his murky, familyless childhood. He would recount the tale of an old acquaintance, a manipulative girl named Nelle, who had taken it from him for a period of time before he finally reclaimed it, or perhaps he had lost it for years, only to recently track it down. The psychological impact of this revelation on Nina would be nothing short of seismic, shifting the very foundation of her reality. We have watched this woman pour oceans of unwarranted guilt, profound grief, and retroactive maternal devotion into the memory of Nell Benson. She went to war with the Corinthos family, alienated her closest friends, and nearly destroyed her own life, defending the ghost of a daughter who, in this new reality, was nothing more than a cruel, opportunistic impostor. The moment Simon utters Nell's name in connection with the stolen necklace, the fragmented memories of Nina's past would violently realign. A brand new, obsessive investigation would be launched, driven by a mother's desperate, clawing need for the absolute truth. This time, the search would not be about mourning Nell, but about unraveling the mystery of the living, breathing man sitting right in front of her. When the inevitable DNA test confirms that Simon is indeed Nina's biological son, the social and familial landscape of Port Charles would be fundamentally altered forever. Willow would suddenly find herself stripped of her status as an only child, thrust into the complex, uncharted reality of having a twin brother. This is a trope we veteran fans absolutely adore because it guarantees years of emotional fallout. The introduction of a twin changes the entire dynamic of a family unit. Michael Corinthos would be completely blindsided by the realization that this new music producer in town is actually the biological uncle to his children. The ripple effects would crash through the Corinthos mansion, dragging a legendary supercouple like Sonny and Carly, along with Sasha and everyone who ever suffered at the hands of Nell, back into a fresh, agonizing cycle of drama and suspicion. What I find most utterly compelling about this theory is the psychological trajectory of Simon himself. In the hands of a skilled writer, Simon does not need to be a noble, pure-hearted hero arriving to save the day. In fact, it would be a massive disservice to the concept of long-term storytelling if he were simply a good guy. Growing up devoid of a family, bouncing through the cold and unforgiving foster system while his twin sister was eventually embraced by immense wealth, privilege, and unconditional love would leave deep, festering emotional wounds. At first, Simon might present a flawless facade of joy, seemingly thrilled to finally be reunited with his birth mother and his twin sister. He would play the part of the grateful, long-lost son perfectly, lulling the audience and his new family into a false sense of security and happiness. However, as the initial euphoria of the reunion inevitably fades, the dark reality of his emotional scars would begin to surface in subtle, chilling ways. Simon would watch Willow receive the lion's share of Nina's suffocating, desperate love and attention. He would see Willow ensconced in the immense power and protection of the Corinthos and Quartermain empires, living a life of luxury and unshakable security. The insidious, creeping seed of jealousy would take root deep within his soul. He has spent his entire life scraping by, desperately searching for a place to belong, while Willow, despite her own past hardships, has somehow inherited the entire world. Lock Willow. This simmering, unspoken resentment could trigger a slow, captivating descent into villainy, or at least into a deep, morally gray area that is the absolute hallmark of every great, memorable soap opera character. This psychological shift in Simon could lead to some incredibly rich, dark, and twisted family dynamics that we have not seen in years. Driven by a desperate need to secure his rightful place, or perhaps to level the playing field against his sister, Simon might commit a terrible mistake or harbor a highly dangerous secret. Nina, driven by her pathological, blinding need to protect her children at all costs, would undoubtedly help him cover it up, sacrificing her own morals in the process. Willow, fiercely loyal and desperate to maintain the fragile peace of her newly expanded family, could easily be dragged into their suffocating web of deceit. This would forge a completely new, unpredictable identity for the Reeves family. Rather than Willow constantly trying to play the moral compass and atone for Nina's sins, we would witness a fascinating evolution where all three family members operate on the razor-thin boundary between good and evil. This is the exact type of brilliant narrative architecture that General Hospital has built its enduring legacy upon. A joyous family reunion that appears to be a picture-perfect fairy tale ending, only to serve as the deceptive prologue for a sprawling saga of hidden agendas, bitter internal conflicts, and shocking betrayals. It fundamentally tests the character integrity of everyone involved, forcing beloved characters into impossible, suffocating corners where they must choose between strict morality and the undeniable pull of blood. For decades, We have tuned in exactly for this specific brand of emotional warfare, where the lines between hero and villain are hopelessly blurred by the fierce, irrational, and often destructive bonds of family. Naturally, at this stage in the viewing experience, this remains a beautifully crafted fan theory born from years of watching patterns unfold. There is no official confirmation that the writers intend to alter the history of Nell's parentage or introduce Simon as the missing piece of Nina's fractured heart. Yet, when we consider the show's rich, unabashed history of executing massive retcons regarding bloodlines and hidden heirs, this path feels not only highly plausible but narratively necessary. It is a bold direction that would deliver a monumental, much needed shock to the canvas, centering Simon, Nina, and Willow in a fresh, high stakes storyline that honors the emotional weight of the past while boldly charting a thrilling new future. If you ask me, this is exactly the kind of fearless, boundary pushing storytelling that keeps a veteran viewer like myself passionately devoted to this show, eagerly waiting on the edge of my seat for the next twist in the road.